We are Onyx Imaging. We are the highest rated and most reviewed printer service center in Oklahoma.
Hi, my name is John with Onyx Imaging, and today we're going to take a look at this HP M551 printer, and we're going to talk about some common causes of paper jams. More specifically, we're going to talk about common causes of paper jams that are happening because of issues inside of your paper tray. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and remove our paper tray. Okay, so now that we removed our paper tray, I'm also going to remove the paper from inside the paper tray and tilt it up so you can see a little bit better. And you'll notice there's these three gray adjusting tabs inside the paper tray. What those are for is to set the specific paper tray for a specific size piece of paper. So whatever kind of paper you're using, in our case we're using a standard 8.5 by 11 or letter size paper, we're going to make sure that all of these little markers are set on the indications for the paper size we're using. So you go through and make sure that everything is set, like I said, in our case for 8.5 by 11 or letter paper. Very, very important. If you have these settings off and say it's set for a larger piece of paper, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to allow the paper to be too loose inside this paper tray, and it's going to be really difficult for the printer to pull the paper properly. Two, it can cause confusion inside the printer where the printer is looking for a larger piece of paper, and it can give you a false paper jam warning. So, the same thing applies if you have this set for a smaller piece of paper than what you're actually using, and it's going to squeeze that paper inside this paper tray and make it way too tight and difficult again for the printer to pull paper through the printer. And also it's going to make the printer think there's a smaller piece of paper inside this paper tray than there really is. So as it's pulling paper through, it's going to assume there's a paper jam somewhere in there. So very, very important. Make sure these are set exactly on the little indications for the paper size you're using in this paper tray. So once you make sure those are all set, you want to make sure you're adding paper into your paper tray correctly. So one thing that happens quite frequently is you have a couple sheets of paper inside your paper tray and you go to add a new stack of paper on top of it, and what happens is you set the paper down and you go to kind of slide it into the back, and you get a couple sheets that'll kind of curl up back behind it. Sometimes it's just one sheet, sometimes it's two. It doesn't matter. If you start to see any paper curl up behind there, it's going to squeeze that paper even just a little bit and make it much more difficult for the paper to come out of that paper tray. So really important, whenever you add paper into the printer, give it a quick check all the way around and check all four sides. Make sure it's a nice even stack all the way up. If you have any paper curled up on any side, just take a second and remove it. It'll go a long way as far as reducing the amount of paper jams you're having. Now the third thing that we see quite often is overfilling the paper tray. So if you look on these little tabs, you'll notice there's a little piece that kind of sticks in towards the paper tray. What that's for is to show you your maximum fill line for adding paper into this paper tray. Now, I know nobody wants to have to stop in the middle of a print job, especially if you have a lot to print that day, to add paper into this paper tray. But if you overfill it, you go over this line, or even if you kind of fill it up to where you can just cram the edges of the paper underneath this, what's going to happen is it's going to mound up on top here, and it's going to be way too tight against the paper pickup assembly inside the printer. And again, it's going to have a really hard time pulling paper until it gets below that line. So you'll probably see a lot of paper jams, and then after a while it'll get better. That's probably a good indication that you're overfilling your paper tray. Usually I would say it's a good idea just to leave a small gap between your top sheet of paper and this little top fill line. Again, it goes a long way as far as reducing the amount of paper jams you're getting. Now if you've checked all three of those and you're still getting frequent paper jams and it doesn't seem to be helping, you've had this printer for a while and it hasn't been serviced, and there's a good chance that the rollers are worn and need to be replaced. If that's the case, please feel free to reach out to Onyx. We'd love to help do that for you. Also, if you have any other questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Onyx. We'd love to help answer those for you as well. Or if there's any way we can help supply with any of your printer or office supply needs. Other than that, we hope you have a great day and you're back up and printing. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you're interested in how you can receive free labor on all of your service calls, as well as how to qualify for free printer upgrades, contact us today. We are here for all of your printer and office supply needs.